Today's video is by very popular request. In fact, I would say it's my most requested topic. So today's episode, I want to talk about 7 secrets that pertain to titles that will take even a very small channel to the next level. As you may have noticed, this channel has been growing pretty fast, and thank you for that. That is so awesome. Sometimes I'll have people coming by asking me, what's your secret? And rather than it being something that I'm guarding closely, I am happy to tell you my secret that there are a lot of things that go into having a good YouTube channel. But I would say probably my biggest secret weapon in all of this is clickable titles. And in today's episode, I'm going to go deeper into that. I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to tell you exactly how I do it, what my secrets are, so you can get out there and grow your channel of your own. Okay, so let's dive in. I got 7 points to get into today. And frankly, these 7 secrets are what helped me build my business from something very small into something that these days is my full-time profession. So the very first thing you need to know about titles on YouTube is that when you're small, titles matter more than thumbnails. I know, right? People put a lot of time and effort into thumbnail design and construction, but they've done experiments on this. The proof is in the pudding. For smaller creators, when people aren't at all used to your channel, the title is often the first hook. And then as you grow, thumbnails often become more important. This is because the visual components like your face, your style of branding, things like that are there to remind your existing viewership that this is your work at a glance. That becomes more important as you build up authority and you build up a following on YouTube. Your thumbnails become your calling card. Your face becomes your calling card. When you're new, when nobody knows who you are, they'll see the title and it'll pique their interest. A lot of times that's the first time you can make inroads. Now, even when you're small, the title and thumbnail should work together to pique the viewer's curiosity. But when you're small, the title is your chance to reel viewers in. And a lot of times it's really going to be your foot in the door. Okay, so titles are really important. Now, how do we do this? How do we make a compelling title? Well, the first thing you can do is actually really simple. On YouTube, storytelling is really key to keeping people engaged, piquing people's curiosity, and keeping people interested in your content. So one of the ways you can do this is actually at the title level, you can tell a story in your title. So as an example, this channel that I'm talking to you on right now is my second channel. My first channel is a RV travel channel called Our Moving Castle that I co-host with my husband, Justin. I started that about a year ago. Of all the videos on our channel, we have a runaway hit. By far our most popular episode was an episode about our stay at Walt Disney World in the RV. So that would have a decent amount of popular appeal on the surface. We actually did 2 episodes on our stay at Walt Disney World. Prior to the runaway hit video, we had put up an episode a month before, which was all about the things that you need to know before RVing at Disney World. It was very organized, very helpful. Actually, I think in a lot of ways, a better video than the one that took off. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, well, what was the difference here? Well, I really do think that the title had a lot to do with it. And I think the key is that this title told a story, and this is what it was. We lived at Disney World for 2 weeks. Here's what happened. Telling this story was much more intriguing, and it was able to work in concert with the thumbnail, which is very good. My co-host Justin made this thumbnail. It's a very good thumbnail. That title tells a story, or at least it teases a story about what the video is about. If we had called it something like Our Disney World Vacation, nobody would have cared. Even something like Review of Walt Disney World's Fort Wilderness RV Park, people would not have been interested. But the story of 2 people living at Disney World for 2 weeks and hinting at some conflict, which there was some, that really helped drive people to click and check it out. And when they did, they liked the video and it went like gangbusters. So that's a good example of telling a story in your thumbnail. You'll see a lot of massive hits that are challenge hits, like some of the Ryan Trahan videos that are like, I turned 1 penny into $10,000. You'll see a lot of, I tried this for 30 days and this is what happened. Those are sort of really quick ways of saying, hey, this is a story, something's going to happen, there's going to be a narrative arc. So I challenge you, as you go through these points with me, to look at YouTube titles in the wild and look at them through this filter and see, and you will notice all kinds of examples, especially at videos that break out and go viral where there is a story told in the title. Now, it can be very difficult thinking of these little stories, these miniature title stories, but boy, if you can get one, it goes out there like crazy. Totally worth it. So that's a very conventional tactic of having a very successful title on YouTube. I want to talk about a very unconventional one that I have found that works extremely well. I've done it a lot in magazine work, and I'm a writer. I've done a lot of freelance articles for magazines. I've done a lot of blogging and essays, and it's the same challenge of getting people to click through to the content. This is very unconventional. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, but it works like a charm. So I thought I would share it with you guys because I'm really happy I figured this out in my tinkering. And that is something called the whiplash method. Now, what's that? Whiplash doesn't sound like a good thing, right? Well, it's interesting. So people are more attuned to negative information. They've actually done studies on this. In the psychological research, people tend to be very activated by negative emotions, things like fear, anger, or conflict. So what I will find some people doing sometimes is that they will just kind of fear bait or honeypot with rage baiting and things like that. I don't like that. I know that it works, but it's not my style. And I also think that it's very easy to have that not convert to a good community, that not convert to long-term success. Viewers get wise to that after a while. I think it's much more beneficial to do substantive work. And also, frankly, as a creator, you don't want to do that. So I've actually come up with an interesting way of sort of balancing the fact that those negative emotions convert to interest, as well as making sure that it provides value to your viewers, and also that you don't feel sleazy or gross, or that you don't get ragey and nasty, because frankly, if you're doing these things for the camera, that can prime you negatively and get you stressed out as the presenter as well, even if you know what you're doing. So the whiplash method is something that's kind of interesting. So what you do is, knowing that negative titles and things like that get people's attention, is that you write a title for your video that people will disagree with, that they won't like. Something really preposterous and attention-getting. People go, what? That can't possibly be true. And then when they click through, you provide a piece of content that is so nuanced and logical that it actually makes sense. There's usually a bunch of supporting work or contentions that make the whole piece sing. And it's not necessarily like a one clickbaity, gimmicky thing. It's a very difficult thing to do logically and rhetorically, but if you can think of something that's like, oh, here's a good example. There's a video that I saw that was on one of the Lord of the Rings commentary channels. There's all these different ones that go into Tolkien analysis and various geek literary analysis. And this episode basically said, what if Sauron were the real hero of Lord of the Rings? Which, obviously, Sauron's the villain. He's the bad guy. He's the ultimate baddie bad. He's not a good guy. But the episode kind of took that and explored it and explored all the nuances. And frankly, by the end of it, it wasn't necessarily something you could tell that the host actually agreed with, but he had gone so thoughtfully through this strange premise and humored it, and you would learn so much and you derive so much value along the way that it didn't feel like clickbait. You watched the whole thing. It was really good. So there are sometimes you can come up with an idea or a way of presenting an idea that people will say, no way, click through, and then by the end of it, they're right in lockstep with you. They're like, okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, and they've learned some things along the way, even if it's not what they expected. So it's key in all of this to avoid the sense of clickbaiting. Clickbaiting is really interesting. So people will talk about good clickbaiting and bad clickbaiting. Essentially, you want people to leave your videos not feeling disappointed. Now, when people don't get what they expected from a video, it can either be a sense of disappointment, like you fell short or like it wasn't good, or you can delight them and deliver more than they expected or something different, but have it be a positive experience. And frankly, as a viewer and also as a presenter, my favorite moments are when you can do the latter, when you can bait with one thing that gets people's attention, but you can deliver something really valuable, educational, edifying. The whole not what you think, and have it be substantive and constructive. And so this kind of positive clickbait, this whiplash method, if you will, it works better if there's genuine nuance or education in the content. So you're drawing people in for a better understanding and not just shock value. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is that numbers are very good in titles, and it's good to use odd ones if you can. You might have noticed this video, I am using 7 in the title. It's an odd number. 7 secrets in this video. And the interesting thing is, depending on what you do for numbers, you can be implying a lot of things. If I call this 3 secrets of titles, you would be expecting a shorter video with less substance, like quick tips. If I had done 13 secrets, it would have been more of a seminar. With 7, there's enough substance here, but this idea that I'm not going to go on and on. 5 is also kind of in that range. The idea is that you are being precise and you're promising something. I think one of the reasons this works so well is that it also implies structure. So when it comes to YouTubing, there is a lot of content that's honestly very good and can do very well, but that's mostly someone just kind of ranting to the camera or just talking free form to the camera, kind of live vlogging your day, unedited stream of consciousness. And some presenters are very good at that and can do that very compellingly, but a lot of beginner folks aren't necessarily focused or organized, especially if they're not editing, if they have no structure. You don't know if you're going to open up a 20-minute video and listen to somebody rant over and over about the same thing in a disorganized way. By putting a number, the industry term for this in magazine is a listicle. It's a list article. You are promising a certain amount of value and structure. In addition, when I was talking about the story item, about how you tell a story, those 30-day challenges, people love having those numbers to kind of say, okay, this is how long this will take. There's something concrete happening. It basically quickly broadcasts to the viewer that there's some kind of structure, which implies some kind of story and some kind of value proposition, essentially. Now, why odd numbers? For a long time, it used to be 10, 10, 10, 10. And recently there's been more of a discovery that odd numbers have been working a lot better instead of top 10 lists. And the reason why they found that odd numbers have been working so well is that there's some psychology that they feel less predictable and more interesting, more intriguing. They're sort of the renegade numbers, if you will. The even numbers are the goody two-shoes numbers, and the odd numbers are the outcasts. So they've found that the odd numbers have been more attention-getting. Do with that what you will. I've found good success still with some even numbers. I think if you don't have the points to get to an odd number, or if you have to axe a compelling point to get to an odd number from the even number, then it's probably not worth it. But if you can land at the odd numbers, it's good times. And the next point is that here's something that's interesting about YouTube. Series do well. So if you have a series of episodes that are all about the same thing or bringing you to something, then if you can get somebody to watch the first video, a lot of times you get them to watch subsequent videos, especially as you're going along. If you have a playlist, that is a really good thing. But sequels do not do well. Now, what am I talking about? Why would I say that series do well, but sequels don't? So it's really interesting, and they have found this not just in YouTube, but also when it comes to book series. So I'm very familiar with this at this point, having been an author. But essentially, people love to watch a series or read a series of books, but they have found that if someone sees a later installment of your series on their homepage and they haven't watched the rest of the series, even if you are putting in the work to make the series accessible in every installment, and I argue that you should do that as a video creator, and as an author I always try to do that as well, to make the later installments accessible to people who haven't experienced the earlier ones. Even if you're doing that work, people will say, let's say you're doing like a Final Fantasy Let's Play. If they see number 22 on your title, the odds of that person watching that video plummet if they're not somebody that's been watching 1 through 21. Yeah, even if you have made that episode entertaining and accessible, even if you're doing the work of explaining, people are going to be like, oh, I can't pick it up on episode 22. People don't do that. And for the most part, when you're looking at a home screen and looking at browse traffic, people are not going to be like, oh, that's really interesting. I want to go back and go to that person's page and find the playlist and find the first one. There are a few people that might do that, but most people are going to pick the video next to it. They're just gonna click on something else. So it's a very difficult thing when you're titling, right? Because you know that people like series, and if you can do your job and get somebody to watch installment 22, but let them know somewhere during all of it that it's part of a series, a lot of people at that point, once they've decided they like your content, they like the series, will go back to one and start binge watching the rest of it, because people really like series once they know it's worth the time investment. So what people have found that works as kind of a middle approach if you're doing a lot of series is to title it like it's a standalone. And then what you do is during the actual episode, at some point in the episode, you mention that it's part of a series, and you allude to the rest of the series, and you link to the playlist in the description, maybe put it on screen. But when you're titling it, you're not like part 22. They found that the actual traffic can go way up if you don't make it apparent that it's part of a series in the title. Now, again, as far as bad clickbait, like I've been saying, if you're using this approach, you want to make sure that the episode will work as a standalone so that people don't feel robbed, like they're in the middle of a conversation they don't understand. You can deliver value, and there are ways to do that, to start midstream without people getting lost. But yeah, it's a very good approach. And if you do a lot of series and you can actually do this, you will find that your viewership will go way up if you do this with your titles. And the next thing I wanted to get into today was that it's really important to use emotional or descriptive language. You want evocative words in your title. So what does that mean, right? It's actually very easy to parody this because it seems so silly, especially from the YouTuber perspective. It can seem so silly and over the top and exaggerated, but it really works. And I've actually noticed there are things that I felt were very cheesy as a YouTuber that I did, that I would watch other YouTubers do, and I would be like the viewer, I'd be scrolling through and looking at videos, and they would work on me. Even if I was aware of it, it would still get my attention. So when we're talking about emotionally laden or vivid words, what kind of things are we talking about? Well, we're trying to hook into curiosity or desire or potentially fear. These are kind of the things that tend to compel people to click on videos. These curiosity, desire, and or fear especially are the emotions that we are targeting. So words like crazy, unbelievable, life-changing, or even descriptive words like brilliant, frustrating, amazing kind of make the title pop. And you'll notice today in this particular episode, in this title, I use the word embarrassing. That's sort of an appeal to FOMO and fear a little bit, the fear of missing out, especially, because if you're embarrassed, you're the only one who doesn't know, I want to know, that sort of thing. The sky's really the limit here. And this is really interesting. I found that once I sort of keyed into this premise that there are certain emotions we're using and certain language that can go with this, all I had to do was go to YouTube and look at my homepage, look at what was being served to me, and kind of use my out-of-character brain. Like, that's a D&D analogy, the out-of-character voice. But use my out-of-character brain where I was like, okay, what are they doing? Like, what are these words? And sometimes it would be just so cheesy and over the top. It'd be like, okay, well, I write down these lists of words that would work. And you can do this with articles too. Like I said, a lot of this also applies to magazine articles. Just look at what people are writing for headlines. Look at words that are sort of dramatic and vivid. Write them down. And once you have them written down, you can either look for them if you're looking to kind of pump up a title you already have, or you can look at them and look and see if you can find patterns and come up with other words that also follow these same patterns. And I've done both of those things and it's worked like a charm. And that brings me to my final tip. And this one has really, really worked well. And it's very simple. And that is asking a question in the title. Why does this work? Well, people love answering unresolved questions. And so titles that are framed as questions, especially ones that hint at solving a pain point or satisfying curiosity, they make viewers feel like they need to click to find out the answer. So here's an example. I actually haven't used these, but these are technically good titles, so don't be surprised if I use them in the future. Can you really grow on YouTube without this? The question's like, wait, what's this? First of all, it's a vague question, which adds to the curiosity angle. And then it's like, can you? Or why do all great creators use this trick? Again, it's kind of two questions in one there. So that's a method that can work for you. I also tend to do a lot that are like why this happens or how this happens, that are framed as answers, but phrase them as a question is even a higher level of salience to people, to be like, oh, there's a question and answer. I want to be on this detective hunt and solve this mystery with the YouTuber. Yeah, there is more to titles if y'all are interested in me going into further depth on any of these points, or there's anything else you want to know about titles, let me know, but those will get you a long way, those 7 tricks. Anyway, it was great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.